I came across this really interesting point in a book that I read last week, and the book is Immortality by Stephen Cave. In this book, he basically refutes all the ways that people become or think that they would be immortal. And one of his points addresses the idea of a spirit or soul that exists beyond three-dimensional reality and that exists beyond time, so forever. So he tries to refute this idea, and he doesn't do a great job, in my opinion. But one point that really made me think, and it was kind of his nail in the coffin point regarding this, is that if there was a consciousness that is beyond the physical brain, then why do, when people get hit in the head or when people black out or anything like that, why isn't there a continuation? Why isn't there this presence, this consciousness that continues throughout that experience? But instead, you just have this phenomenon where you remember one thing and then you're instantly, your memory starts in another scene, even though things have happened in between, or things might have happened in between. You don't really know because you weren't conscious for it. And that's a really interesting point, that idea of why doesn't consciousness continue throughout that blackout? And a point, something that I thought of regarding this is to look at it not as like a continuing timeline. So not as like scene, blank space, the next scene, but more as something like when a DVD skips or when a video game skips, something like that. And that really, it felt true to me and it felt right to me. So let me explain it again. So instead of something like you have one memory and then it's just blank space or blackness, and then your next memory comes up, and the blank space is where you don't have a conscious memory, or you don't have any feeling of consciousness whatsoever. Instead of that, it's more like one thing and then a skip to another scene. So when you're watching a movie and the DVD skips, it just instantly goes to another scene and you're like, whoa. Or if you just press like to go ahead in a chapter or go behind in a chapter, something like that. Or when you're playing a video game, the same thing when it skips, when there's some sort of glitch. So I started thinking about this blackout phenomenon or anything like that, getting hit in the head, as like when a video game skips or a glitch, something like that. And it makes more sense, doesn't it? If you really think about it. Because I don't think there's some just continuous blank space that exists and there's just nothing, and then you wake up, because the tools that I'm comparing to this, the DVD, the video games, and as you've probably heard, chances are this reality is some form of simulation as well. So if I hit my computer really hard right now, it might skip or something like that, freeze up, and then resume at another point in time. And with all of this stuff, like with a video game or a DVD, for example, all of it exists. Actually, a video game's a more accurate comparison because it's like a choose your own adventure thing. It's more customizable. Like we don't have these fixed DVD lives. We do have free will. There are free will components to this. So think of it as like a video game. The whole video game exists on the disc, or if you're playing old school Nintendo, on the cartridge. But let's just say the disc. The whole video game exists on the disc. So all of the levels, everything, it exists there. And so it's just the decoding mechanism that creates the experience within the moment. So whatever you're experiencing in the game is what's being decoded out of that disk the whole time. So I'm of the opinion that eternity exists, but we're only decoding it one moment at a time, like you would decode the experience of a video game. So it does exist, and when you get hit in the head, it would be like a skip in the video game or a glitch in the video game. So you would just get transported from one scene to another. Even though someone else, oh, this is actually good. I didn't think of this one before. Like if you're playing a multiplayer video game online and your screen is skipping, that doesn't mean other people's screens are skipping. They might have a fluid experience. So other people around you might be having a fluid experience at the moment while yours is skipping and being glitchy. So your experience might be you're here and then you're somewhere else before you know it, while someone else's experience might be more seamless and flowing. So if you look at things that way, it's really interesting. And I'm not saying this is ultimate truth or that you can empirically prove it with the scientific method. It's just a thought. Because ultimately the science we're using, it's limited, especially because it's basically based on materialistic three-dimensional premises. So how are you going to explain something that's beyond the third dimension with three-dimensional tools? You inherently can't. It's like, going back to the video game analogy, like how is Super Mario in the original one, the two-dimensional one, how is two-dimensional Super Mario supposed to explain what's going on in a three-dimensional room? It's beyond it. So you can't explain what's going on beyond the third dimension with three-dimensional tools, if you get what I'm saying. And so we don't yet have the tools to really effectively study phenomenon like this. It's like trying to measure liquid the same way you would try to measure solid. You can't like put a ruler up to water and be like, this is the dimensions of water, because it doesn't behave that way at all. So you have to use a completely new tool set. So we're going to have to, in order to effectively study things, we're going to have to tweak the scientific method, tweak the ways we measure reality, all kinds of things. If that even works, who knows? Because all of this phenomena is so fleeting. So that's why a lot of it is so experiential. Once you experience it, it's like, whoa, that is real. But it's hard to prove with these three-dimensional tools. So you have things like near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and all of these stuff. We get all these kinds of stories from yogis, experiences in deep meditation. I've had experiences where like I just know there's something beyond the physical reality. I just know it through my own experiences. But how do you measure these kind of things? We need to expand the reach of science or the scientific method to be able to more readily explain these kind of things. So with what I'm saying about the video game analogy, it's not ultimate truth. I can't prove it with facts right now, but it's just something interesting to think about. And it's something that it resonates well with me, and I think it's a cool metaphor or analogy. It's actually an analogy, not a metaphor. All right, so life is a video game. Go enjoy it. If you get hit in the head, it's a little bit of a glitch, a little bit of a blip. The video game's skipping a little bit. All right? Peace, much love, and one love, baby.